Some families are built on trust, but others are built on lies so dark, they're hard to even imagine. What happens when the people who are supposed to protect you are the very monsters you should be running from? We all think of home as a safe place, a sanctuary from the dangers of the outside world. It's where we're meant to be loved, nurtured, and kept from harm. But the simple truth is, sometimes the most terrifying threats aren't out there in the shadows. Sometimes they're sitting right across the dinner table, smiling as they pass the salt, all while hiding secrets of unimaginable cruelty. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 3 such homes, uncovering 3 true stories where the illusion of a happy family was finally shattered, exposing the horrifying truths that had been locked away for years, sometimes for generations. These are stories of betrayal at its deepest level, where family bonds were twisted into chains and love was used as a weapon. From a hidden dungeon built beneath a normal suburban house to a secret that survived the Holocaust, these stories are a chilling reminder that you can never truly know what goes on behind closed doors. Section 1. The Fritzell Basement Captivity, a 24-year nightmare. Our first story takes us to the quiet, picturesque town of Amstetten, Austria, a town with cobblestone streets, charming shops, and peaceful suburban neighborhoods. It was here, at Ybbstrasse number 40, that Josef Fritzell lived with his wife Rosemarie and their 7 children. To his neighbors, Josef was an ordinary, if a bit strict, family man. A retired electrical engineer, he had built a life for his family and even owned a small apartment block he rented out. He was a man of routine who kept to himself, but no one suspected anything truly sinister. No one could have guessed that beneath the neatly kept garden and the boring exterior of his home, Josef was building a hidden world of unimaginable horror. It started quietly. In the late 1970s and early 80s, Josef got official permits to extend his cellar. In a country on the edge of the Cold War, building a personal bunker wasn't that strange. But this wasn't for nuclear fallout. This was a custom-built prison. Over several years, he dug out and reinforced a series of tiny, windowless rooms. He soundproofed the entire area and installed 8 separate locked doors to reach the final chamber. The last door was a 300-kilogram, steel-reinforced concrete slab, operated by a secret electronic code that only he knew. The target for his monstrous plan was his own daughter, Elizabeth. Born in 1966, her childhood was destroyed by her father's abuse, which started when she was just 11. She was a spirited girl who dreamed of a life free from his suffocating control. After training as a waitress, she tried to escape in 1983, running off to Vienna with a friend. But her freedom didn't last long. The police found her within 3 weeks and brought her back to her parents. That attempt just seemed to harden her father's resolve to control her completely. On August 28, 1984, shortly after Elizabeth turned 18 and was about to start a new job, her father made his move. He asked her to come down to the cellar to help with a door he was installing. Wanting to avoid a fight, she did as he asked. As she helped him fit the heavy door into its frame, he pressed a cloth soaked in ether to her face. As her world went black, he dragged her into the very chamber she had just unknowingly helped him seal. She was now a prisoner. Above ground, life was supposed to go on as normal. When Elizabeth didn't show up for her job, her mother, Rosemarie, filed a missing persons report. But Josef had his story ready. Weeks later, he produced a letter, handwritten by Elizabeth under his command, postmarked from another town. In it, she said she was tired of her family and had run away to join a religious cult, warning them not to look for her. The police, remembering her previous runaway attempt, bought the story. The investigation was closed. As far as the world knew, Elizabeth Fritzell had simply vanished. For the next 24 years, Elizabeth lived in total darkness. The cellar was her entire world, a cramped, damp space where she could barely stand up straight. Her father visited her almost every day, not for comfort, but to exert his absolute power, subjecting her to relentless sexual abuse. He was her captor, her tormentor, and for years the only other person she saw. The horror then grew beyond comprehension. 2 years into her captivity, Elizabeth gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Kirsten. She delivered the baby all alone in the filthy cellar, with only a book on childbirth and a few supplies Fritzell had given her. Over the next 2 decades, she would give birth to 6 more children, all of them fathered by him. Josef Fritzell then began a bizarre and monstrous double life. 3 of the children, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, stayed in the cellar with Elizabeth, never seeing sunlight or breathing fresh air. They were ghosts, their lives a secret kept within the concrete walls. Elizabeth did her best to be a mother in these impossible conditions, teaching them to read, write, and speak, trying to create some kind of childhood in a world made of just a few small rooms. The other 3 surviving children, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, became part of a cruel game. As babies, Joseph would bring them upstairs. He'd stage their discovery, placing each one in a cardboard box on the family's doorstep with a note, supposedly from Elizabeth, saying she couldn't care for the baby and asking her parents to take it in. Incredibly, this story was accepted. Rosemary and Joseph were granted foster care of their own grandchildren, raising them in the house directly above the prison where the children's mother and siblings were trapped. Social services saw no red flags, unaware that Joseph had a criminal record for sexual assault from 1967. That record had been erased under Austrian law after 15 years, allowing him to appear as a perfectly suitable guardian. For the upstairs children, life was a strange paradox, raised by their grandparents, believing their mother had abandoned them. For the downstairs children, life was a cramped, sunless existence, broken up by the terrifying visits of the man they knew only as their captor and father. Fritzell controlled them with fear, telling them the doors were electrified, and that if they tried to escape, the cellar would be flooded with poison gas. It was a lie, but to them, the threat was very real. For 816 days, this nightmare continued, hidden in plain sight. The secret was finally exposed, not by an escape, but by a desperate medical emergency. In April 2008, the oldest child, 19-year-old Kirsten, who had spent her whole life underground, became gravely ill. She was unconscious, and her life was in danger. Elizabeth begged her father to get her medical help, a plea he couldn't ignore without risking the death of a girl whose existence he couldn't explain. Fritzell drove Kirsten to a local hospital, claiming he'd found his long-lost granddaughter on his doorstep, left there by Elizabeth. But the hospital staff was immediately suspicious. Kirsten was deathly pale, her teeth were rotting, and she was suffering from multiple organ failure, conditions that didn't match a normal life. Doctors also found a note in her pocket, a desperate plea for help from Elizabeth. They needed a medical history, and for that, they needed her mother. The police were called and made a public appeal, urging Elizabeth to come forward for her daughter's sake. Backed into a corner, Josef Fritzell made one last fatal mistake. On April 26, 2008, he released Elizabeth, now 42, along with her 2 sons from the cellar, Stefan and Felix. He told Rosemary their runaway daughter had finally come home. He then took Elizabeth to the hospital, but it was too late for lies. An anonymous tip at the hospital, noticing how terrified Elizabeth looked around her father, led police to intervene. Separated from her father for the first time in 24 years, Elizabeth finally told her story. For over 6 hours, she described the decades of imprisonment, the abuse, the births, and the death of one of her infant sons, Michael, whose body Fritzell had burned in the furnace. The world watched in horror as the details came out. Police descended on the house, and after Fritzell gave them the code, they uncovered the soundproofed dungeon. In March 2009, Josef Fritzell pleaded guilty to all charges, including murder by negligence for the infant's death, and was sentenced to life in a secure psychiatric institution. Elizabeth and her 6 surviving children were given new identities and moved to a secret location. The downstairs children had to be slowly introduced to simple things like sunlight and wide-open spaces, while the upstairs children had to face the truth that their mother had been a prisoner beneath their feet their entire lives. The Fritzell case is still one of the most depraved and shocking examples of a dark family secret in modern history, a 24-year-long nightmare hidden behind the facade of a quiet, ordinary life. The Fritzell case shows how one twisted person can build a prison of both mind and body, but sometimes the darkness isn't just in a cellar. Sometimes it infects an entire family, hiding behind a mask of success and respectability. Our next story takes us to a seemingly perfect home in Pennsylvania, where a trusted doctor's flawless image was about to be destroyed by a tiny blinking light. Section 2. The hidden camera. Doctor, a family's perfect facade shattered. In Douglasville, Pennsylvania, Dr. Justin Rutherford seemed to have it all. At 32, he was a respected family physician, a man people trusted with their health. He was married to Stacy, a single mom, and together they were raising her son, Tyler Van Schiok, in a big 5-bedroom house. To everyone else, they were the picture of a happy, blended family. Justin was seen as a loving husband and a caring stepfather. But that dream was a carefully built illusion, and it was about to be exposed by the very technology he used to fuel his dark compulsions. The unraveling started in July 2021. Tyler, a teenager at the time, had a friend over to swim in the family pool. Later, the friend went to use the upstairs bathroom. While he was in there, he noticed something strange. A small black cube plugged into an outlet near the shower. It looked like a normal USB phone charger, but something felt off. A faint blue light was blinking on it. The boy, his curiosity sparked, took a photo of the device and then took it with him. When he got home, he showed the device to his mother. Her suspicions confirmed. They called the police. That one moment of awareness from a teenage boy would kick off an investigation that would unearth crimes far more disturbing than anyone could have guessed. The Amity Township Police quickly determined the device was a motion-activated spy camera. When the Berks County District Attorney's Lab looked at the memory card, what they found was staggering. Nearly 3,000 videos and over 1,400 pictures dating back to 2018. The images were of adults and children who had no idea they were being recorded in their most private moments, showering, changing, and using the toilet. When confronted, Rutherford and his wife at first denied knowing anything about the camera, but the evidence was overwhelming, and the investigation, which began as a simple invasion of privacy, was about to escalate. As detectives dug deeper, they found out the hidden camera wasn't the full story. It was just a symptom of a much more sinister secret. The discovery of the camera acted as a trigger. Another of Tyler's friends came forward with a horrifying story. He told investigators that during a sleepover at the Rutherford house, Justin had given him alcohol and marijuana. The boy felt intoxicated and passed out, only to wake up and realize he had been sexually assaulted by the doctor. This brave confession gave Tyler Van Schiok the courage to finally reveal the secret he had been carrying for years. He told investigators that his stepfather, the man who was supposed to be his protector, had been sexually abusing him since he was just 11 years old. The abuse was systematic, lasting for nearly 6 years. Rutherford had used threats and manipulation to keep Tyler silent, creating a prison of fear right inside their home. With multiple victims and a mountain of digital evidence, the case against Dr. Rutherford was solidifying. But as police got ready to arrest him, the doctor made a run for it, booking a flight to the United Kingdom. His escape didn't last long. On October 2, 2021, just a day after the warrant was issued, federal agents caught him at Washington Dulles International Airport as he was flying back to the U.S. The respected doctor was now facing 45 criminal charges, including rape of a child, sexual assault, and invasion of privacy. But even from jail, his evil didn't stop. He became obsessed with silencing the main witness against him, his own stepson, Tyler. From his cell, Rutherford started putting together a murder-for-hire plot. Believing he was talking to a trusted associate, he laid out a detailed plan to have Tyler killed. He gave the would-be hitman Tyler's address, his work schedule, a description of his car, and even a hand-drawn floor plan of the house. In secretly recorded conversations, he told the assassin exactly what to do. The hit should be painless. The killer should wear gloves and layered clothing to avoid leaving DNA, and use a tarp to move the body, which was to be either buried in a forest or burned in a barrel. Thankfully, investigators intercepted his monstrous plan. Rutherford was now facing an additional charge, criminal solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The trial exposed the terrifying double life of Justin Rutherford. His defense tried to argue for a lighter sentence, pointing to his job as a doctor, but the judge flatly rejected it. In an emotional statement to the court, Tyler and his mother Stacy spoke about the deep betrayal and devastation Rutherford had brought upon their family. In the end, he couldn't escape accountability. Justin Rutherford pleaded guilty to rape of a child and other charges. On May 1, 2023, a judge sentenced him to a minimum of 26 years and 10 months up to a maximum of 70 years in prison. He also received an additional sentence for the murder-for-hire plot and was stripped of his medical license. The judge forbade him from ever contacting his young children again. The case was a chilling look at how evil can hide behind a mask of respectability. Tyler Van Sciach has since become an advocate for male survivors of sexual abuse, encouraging others to speak out. His journey through unimaginable trauma has been incredibly difficult, but with his family's support, he has focused on healing and building a future. His bravery, and that of his friend who first spotted the camera, brought a monster to justice and shattered the dark secret of the perfect family on the hill. These stories are incredibly tough to hear, but it's important to bring them into the light. If you're finding this look into the darkness that can hide within families compelling, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Now, let's get to our final story, which shows that sometimes the darkest secrets aren't about crimes happening now, but about truths buried by the weight of history. Our first two stories were about secrets born from pure evil. Our final story is different. It's about a secret born from trauma, survival, and a mother, yes, desperate attempt to protect her child from a past too horrifying to even speak about. It's a secret that stayed hidden for over 60 years until it was unlocked by a simple vial of saliva and the power of DNA. Section 3. The Ancestry Test that uncovered a Holocaust survivor's secret. For most of her life, Ellis Trelevin, a 75-year-old woman in Perth, Australia, knew who she was. She was born in Amsterdam during World War II to her loving Dutch Jewish parents. Her life story was stable, a narrative she had always accepted without question. But there were always gaps, unspoken things about her mother Helena's past that were wrapped in silence. Ellis knew her mother had survived the Holocaust, but Helena never ever spoke of the details. Like many survivors, she built a new life and buried the old one. This carefully built reality started to fall apart a decade ago, not with a confession, but with a piece of paper. Ellis found a birth document with a shocking piece of information. She hadn't been born in Amsterdam like she'd always believed. Her place of birth was listed as Theresienstadt, a concentration camp and ghetto in the Nazi-occupied Czech Republic. The document held another bombshell. In the space for her father's name, it just said, unknown. Suddenly, Ellis's entire identity was thrown into chaos. If she was born in a concentration camp, how was she conceived? Who was her real father? The discovery was a massive shock, raising terrifying possibilities she wasn't ready to face. The lie her mother told her wasn't meant to be cruel. It was a desperate shield, an attempt to separate her daughter's life from the horrors of her own. For years, Ellis lived with these questions. The full truth, it seemed, had died with her mother. But our modern world offers new ways to dig up old secrets. Wanting to understand her own background and fill the massive holes in her family history, Ellis decided to take an Ancestry DNA test. She sent off a saliva sample, hoping for a few answers, and waited. What came back was another huge shock. The DNA test confirmed what the birth document hinted at. The man who had raised her, the man she called her father, was not genetically related to her. But the test also opened a new door to the truth. The Ancestry service connected her with distant genetic relatives, creating a breadcrumb trail that led right back into the heart of wartime Europe. Determined to finally get the full story, Ellis traveled to the Netherlands, her mother's home country. There, through careful research and by connecting with newfound relatives, she started to piece together the life her mother, Helena, had tried so desperately to leave behind. Helena's story was one of terror and resilience. She was a young Polish Jewish woman arrested by the Nazis. She was taken through a nightmarish series of concentration camps, including the infamous Ravensbrück camp for women. She was forced into labor, starved, and lived under the constant threat of death. Crucially, Ellis learned that when her mother was arrested, she was already pregnant. Her journey took her through several camps, and she eventually ended up in Theresienstadt, the camp ghetto where she would give birth to her daughter, Ellis. The conditions at Theresienstadt were horrific, but the Nazis used it as a model ghetto for propaganda, which meant that, unlike at extermination camps, some records were kept. A small number of prisoners, especially mothers with babies, were allowed to survive. Ellis was born into this world of death and deprivation. Her survival, and her mother's, was a miracle. After liberation in the spring of 1945, Helena was a 20-year-old survivor, holding her baby daughter. She had lost everyone and everything. She never saw her own mother or siblings again. She eventually made her way to a displaced persons camp, and, like so many others, chose to build a new future by erasing the past. She met and married the man Ellis would know as her father, and together they built a new life, founded on the secret of Ellis's true origin. But the DNA test held one last piece of the puzzle. By comparing her genetic markers with her newfound relatives, Ellis and the researchers helping her finally identified her biological father. He wasn't a Nazi guard, a fear that had haunted her, but another Jewish prisoner. He was a talented artist and musician from her mother's hometown, a man who was also caught up in the horrors of the Holocaust. He did not survive the war. For Ellis Tree-Leven, the revelations were overwhelming. At 75 years old, she had to rewrite the story of her entire life. The discovery wasn't just about her parents. It was about facing the immense trauma her mother endured and understanding why she had been silent for so long. Her mother gave her a different life story, not to lie, but to give her a life free from the shadow of the gas chambers, a life where her birthday wasn't a reminder of being born in one of the worst places on earth. This story, featured on the documentary series Every Family Has a Secret, shows a growing phenomenon. Millions of people are sending in their DNA out of curiosity, only to uncover life-altering secrets. Studies show that a surprising number of people discover a parent isn't their biological relative, or that they have siblings they never knew about. This genetic reckoning can be deeply painful, forcing people to question who they are and their relationships with the people they love. For Ellis, the journey was both heartbreaking and healing. It brought grief for the father she never knew and a deeper understanding of the mother she had. Finding the truth didn't erase the lie, but it explained it. It allowed her to finally understand the depth of her mother's love and the incredible strength it took for her to survive and build a new world for her child, a world built on a secret she carried to her grave. The stories we've looked at today, of a father who built a dungeon, a doctor who lived a double life, and a mother who buried a wartime trauma, are extreme. Yet they all point to the same unsettling truth, that the idea of family, which we connect with safety and love, can sometimes hide the deepest darkness. They remind us that a normal-looking life can be just that, a facade built to hide secrets of abuse, betrayal, and deep historical pain. From the unspeakable cruelty in the Fritzell cellar to the quiet lies born of trauma, these secrets, once they come out, forever change the lives of everyone they touch. They force a complete rewrite of personal history and a hard look at trust, love, and identity. It leaves us all with a lingering, uncomfortable question. How well do we really know the people closest to us? What secrets are hiding in the foundations of our own families, just waiting for a crack to appear? Thank you for joining me on this journey into the shadows. If you have any thoughts on these cases, please share them respectfully in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries of the human condition. Stay safe and always be curious.